Notebooks are great. They're really easy to store information in, it's all in one place, it's organized and it's safe. And usually, they're not too hard to find. However, often you end up having to write stuff down on loose leaf paper or just take notes that you want to keep. And those, I'm sure you would agree with me, they float around and they get lost really easily. If you want a solution to that problem, then you've come to the right place, because in this video, I'm going to show you how to make some really easy notebook folders that can hold your loose leaf paper very nicely, and they keep the paper safe, organized, and it's easy to find. So, if you want to see how to make that, then stay tuned for this video. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is take your loose leaf paper and just fold it in half. I prefer to have the title on the outside so that I can more easily see what it actually is. Then you're going to take your piece of paper that will be the folder and use your loose leaf paper to size up how big it needs to be. But I want to leave a little extra room on the sides that will allow for it to slide in easily. To create the bottom of our folder, what I like to do is just see where the top is, and so here you've got that red line that's on all lined paper. I'll just line that up with the top edge, maybe go a little more than that, and then fold the bottom edge up. Once you've made all those folds nice and tight, you can open it up and take this out. A little thing to help us later on is to take some scissors and just kind of make the corners taken down a bit so that there's no sharp corners that will resist being glued down. Now that we've got that, we want to make sure that it's easy to get the paper in and out, and if the front is just as high as the back, sometimes you're going to be trying to get the paper down underneath the whole thing instead of into this slot. So a easy way to fix that is to take something large and round. I have a empty filament spool here that works really well, but you just need something that can guide a pencil around the opening. An important thing to note here is that the edges of our circle come a little lower than the corners. That means that even at the very edges of the paper, the front is going to be slightly lower than the back and keep it really easy to get the paper in and out. Unfold it now and cut that out. And just to make sure everything is still working, we can fold it back up into its folder shape and put the piece of paper in. Looks like it sits in there nicely. Now comes the stage of gluing. First we're going to glue these pages down to here, as well as these flaps are going to be glued to here. And once all of that is secured, we can glue it into the notebook. Here is a good place to use stick glue. Now just fold it in, and you'll notice I put the glue on these sides instead of the center because there is this slight crack that has been created due to just the size of the paper in this paper. That's not going to harm the functionality, but it does make it a little more difficult to glue while avoiding gluing the entire folder together. Because if I had put it in this area, that crack would have then folded down and connected through here onto the inside, and then it would not work and we'd have to rip that off. These areas aren't holding a ton of load, which is another reason I think stick glue works very well here. At this point we have a fully functional protected case for the paper, but it has not yet been secured to the notebook, so let's move on to doing that. When I'm putting them in the notebook, I like to have them a few lines from the bottom, which usually equates to leaving enough space for the top edge here, so that we still have the title area on our notebook where we can put a title or a few notes on what is kept here. Then I can mark the corners out. Now for here, I'm definitely going to use some of this liquid glue. You don't need very much of it, but it is much stronger than the stick glue, and I trust it to hold my folder in here 100% of the time instead of possibly slowly peeling off over usage. I am adding a bit of stick glue just because it adheres quickly, and I think a combination of these two is a pretty ideal adhesive. And I'll just spread it around with my finger so that it's more evenly dispersed. Once again, we want to avoid getting any glue through that crack. So here's the notebook and our glue-coated folder that can stick right in the area that I marked out earlier. A good way to make sure it's all flat is to take a lid of a piece of stick glue and rub it back and forth. However, because I don't want to squeeze any glue out of the sides that causes trouble, I'm going to put this scrap piece of paper inside of it and just rub the head back and forth, which will press our folder down onto the notebook paper and keep all the glue spread out and well sealed. Now I'm going to look for loose corners. If they are there, they are probably not going to cause a problem because the liquid Elmer's glue takes a while to dry, but I like to just take some stick glue to those corners, and that'll help just hold them down for now. And just like that, you have created a functioning folder, but don't leave yet because there are a few tricks you can add to these to make them a whole lot cooler. Here you'll notice I've got some titles here on another piece of paper. I put titles across the top, but these pages are a little bigger and they stuck out higher than I expected. Down here is a really cool trick where you can basically create an invisible folder by taking paper of the same rule, so that's the number of lines in a certain area. As you can see, if you get a close look, these two papers are different rule. Anyway, if you take a paper of the same rule and line it up with the lines on this notebook, and then just glue it across the top of the folder, you then have rule, so lined paper, across the folder, and that allows you to just write right over it if you want to do that. Now, before I tell you a few of the risks of doing this, like kind of a couple of the disadvantages, I want to just mention that you can use this type of technique on really any simple shaped object. So that includes business cards or pencils. I've done it a few times on pens when I have checklists. I just like make a little roll and stick a pen in it, and then that just stays with my checklist. But yeah, the disadvantages are that you're adding a whole lot of weight and structure to one page, particularly this page that I have created two separate folders on is very heavy and very stiff. So if I want to leaf through my notebook, then I'll just always end up on this page because it's just so much heavier and stiffer. If you are doing it on just one side and want the other side to remain very nice looking and completely intact, then you might be risking it a little bit to use that glue, which can often kind of wrinkle up the surface just because it's kind of wet. However, if you want to see how to make some really cool notebook covers just like these ones, that video will appear right here. I take you step by step through how to do this and show you how to make some like this one with a slide out label as well. So you really should check that video out, and if you got value out of this video, then consider liking and subscribing, because otherwise you might not see me in the next video.